from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, as China trade talks are set to resume, can American ag find gains? In agribusiness, are spring wheat acres shifting?
So are we going to get that spring wheat acreage or not? I think we're losing some pretty significant acres out there.
Machinery Pete looks at vintage combine prices and a simple solution to solving a trashy problem.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. China's top economic officials scheduled to visit the United States this week to resume trade talks. The ag industry hoping it leads to a breakthrough and open doors for U.S. goods. The movement following early May discussions in Beijing between high-level delegations on both sides. The U.S. hopes to tackle intellectual property theft, subsidies, and a trade deficit. Agriculture has been a big focus of recent discussions. That's according to Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. He told members of a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee that agriculture was featured prominently in trade discussions.
Prominently included in the written requests that we gave them prior to this trip were the question of agriculture. So I can assure you that it featured quite prominently in all of the discussions. We made some very specific requests, product by product, quantity by quantity, and in a subsequent session, the Chinese responded in kind. We're all well aware that it's horribly unfair for one industry to bear the brunt of retaliation in our efforts to help other parts of the economy.
While U.S. Ag focuses on maintaining market access during negotiations, some in Washington think the status quo isn't good enough. Ty Morgan reports.
As trade concerns weigh on U.S. agriculture, some economists say during a time when margins are already tight, agriculture has a lot to lose.
25% or more of what we produce today is leaving the United States, losing those markets as a result of WTO actions or countries just deciding they also want to move to other countries. That potentially is a big problem. When across the board we've seen an expansion of ag commodity supplies, it comes at a very bad time for just about every commodity we can talk about in agriculture.
Ray Starling is the special assistant to the president for agriculture and agricultural trade. He says he understands the angst in farm country.
In the ag world, we feel like, notwithstanding the inequities and the unfairness around the world with regard to a conversation about free trade, we have still done pretty well, right? We are selling a lot of our product elsewhere, and we are worried that we will upset the apple cart with regard to keeping those markets open.
However, Starling says what agriculture is missing is how much ground there is to potentially gain. Dan Bassey is the CEO of Ag Resource Company. He says this chart shows that as China's appetite to buy more soybeans continues to grow, the U.S. is losing market share.
We used to be up over 54%. We're now heading into the upper 30s. A lot of that's been due to, of course, enlarged South American production. Brazil has been ramping up their production. Of course, they are always anxious to sell their beans, and they're heading to China.
That's something we need to reverse. If we want to, we are still selling them more and more soybeans every year in terms of pure number of bushels. But as a percentage of their market, we should be nervous that we are not growing along with their market.
Bassey says looking long term, China expects to continue to buy more beans. And if the U.S. doesn't fix lingering trade issues with China, the U.S. could miss the boat.
The Chinese will continue to ramp up soybean imports. USDA forecasts them at 103 million metric tons yesterday. So I imagine that at some point, China in the next 5 years will take close to 120 million tons. We'd surely like to grab a big share of that.
As the president says, it's not just free trade, but fair trade the administration is striving for. Bassey says unfair practices are coming to light as China is holding as many as 7 cargo ships of soybeans hostage over what they claim is too much foreign matter in the shipments.
The Chinese are already raising trade barriers to us in terms of our product today. Brazilian and Argentinian beans are sailing right through without a problem. Again, China has picked on us on foreign matter or weed seed at a little bit of going backwards. However, what has just come up in the last couple of weeks is new, and we believe it's related to the trade dispute that's ongoing.
Bassey says looking past soybeans, it's the meat sector that also has room for improvement.
When I think about the opportunities for beef and pork into China, it's tremendous. And so it's the meat sector that we're most excited about should we get a level playing field.
Starling says as products like U.S. poultry continue to face barriers into China, he says agriculture's do no harm mantra when it comes to trade is setting the bar too low.
But I think if we think long term about the ag economy and where we need to go and the fact that our production is going to continue to increase, our technologies are going to continue to get better, our farmers are going to continue to be smarter and be better at managing all the inputs and the elements that they have to put up with. If that's the case, we're going to have to sell more, not just do no harm.
That's why Starling says even though there may be some short-term pain, the administration is optimistic about the possible long-term gain.
The president is committed to getting better than what we already have, and we're going to need a little bit of room to get there. So bear with us. At the moment, it appears folks are being patient. We would just ask for that patience to continue and give us a chance to try to make some progress on some of these issues.
All right, thanks, Ty. And White House Ag Advisor Ray Starling, who she featured within that piece, is leaving for a new role. Announced Friday, Starling will be taking over as USDA's Chief of Staff beginning in June. He'll replace current Chief Heidi Green, who's returning to be with family in Georgia. U.S. officials may have another trade dispute to take up with China during talks. U.S. produce shippers are turning sour as U.S. fruit sits for days at Chinese ports. Produce is stalled at customs for what the Chinese call health safety inspections. However, shippers say these inspections are taking much longer than normal.
When you sit at a port for a week, that really takes the marketability of that crop away. So I think the cherry industry is most concerned about these delays, although other commodities like apples and citrus are also concerned.
Carr says shippers and those in the produce industry believe the move by China is to make a statement on trade. National reporter Betsy Gibbon has been digging into this story. She'll take a closer look at the issue tomorrow on AgDay. While NAFTA negotiations round the home stretch, House Speaker Paul Ryan says the administration has until May 17th to submit a final NAFTA deal. That's if it wants lawmakers to vote on the new agreement this year and by using Trade Promotion Authority. Now, you'll remember Trade Promotion Authority, or TPA, is a fast track for trade agreements allowing an up or down vote without amendments. It requires that Congress be notified 90 calendar days before the executive branch signs the agreement. A farm bill vote appears slated for this week if the Republican majority can secure enough votes and avoid poison pill amendments. The date of the floor debate has not been set, but House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy says it will be considered this week. One amendment to watch is the Sugar Policy Modernization Act. It lifts limits on domestic production, allows the Ag Secretary to adjust import quotas, and ends government-backed non-recourse loans for sugar growers. House Ag Committee Chair Mike Conaway says it would effectively kill the sugar industry. Rain and cooler temperatures falling across portions of the Midwest over the weekend. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joining us now with more in today's Crop Comments.
Good morning, Clinton. Rain isn't welcoming news to some areas of the Corn Belt. Scott and Lori Nealon from Summit, South Dakota, sending us pictures to prove that their planting struggles this year are real. They say very little corn has been planted in the northeast corner of the state. It doesn't help the area received rain last week as well. USDA says in its latest crop progress report, 6% of corn has been planted in South Dakota. The 5-year average is 33%. A new report will be released later this afternoon. Now, taking a look at the estimated rainfall from last week. Here's what we're talking about. Now, there were some areas in the Tennessee Valley from Mississippi all the way up into West Virginia. They got an inch or two of rain, and there were those pockets from parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, across southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, into the western portions of the Great Lakes. And there is more rain coming for parts of the area this week. We'll be showing you that forecast coming up. But first, here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Could spring wheat acres be shifting to soybeans? We'll talk about it coming up at the Agribusiness Desk and find out how researchers are using something as simple as air bubbles to reduce the amount of litter going into lakes and oceans. Plus, Machinery Pete is here.
We'll talk vintage and late model combines. Stay tuned.
Ted Seifert, Zaner Ag Hedge, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. You know, Ted, about a week ago, the Kansas Wheat Tour was wrapping up. People looking at like a 37 bushel yield for Kansas wheat. Where does that take us? What is your opinion of where this takes the wheat market, even as spring planting is still happening?
Right. So, well, okay, spring planting, let's talk about that first.
Which is behind.
Well behind. So
Right.
are we going to get that spring wheat acreage or not? I think we're losing some pretty significant acres up there. Talking to my guys up in the Dakotas, they've already started to make the shift. They're looking at soybeans in particular. So you're going to get more bean acres up
Right.
there and less spring wheat. So that acreage number is coming down. When you look at the winter wheat crops, you know, the wheat tour, it gave us pretty much an idea of what we were looking for. I mean, it really kind of echoed what we were looking for. It wasn't a big surprise one way or the other.
Right.
A word that was thrown around there a lot was potential, and you think that maybe that kind of factored into the numbers they were giving us as far as their average yield. We've seen the USDA many times, more often than not, come in with a yield below the wheat tour. So, you know, on this WASDE report, I think we should be expecting or bracing for something like that. Now, that being said, less spring wheat acres, not a great winter wheat yield.
Right.
There's still a lot of wheat in the world. The global balance sheet is still very robust. Our domestic balance sheet is still rather robust. That translates out for another year or two. It's really hard to get excited about wheat prices having to go sharply higher, even with problems in Russia. Their crops suffering a little bit too. There's still a lot of wheat in the world. The stocks are just very big, so it's going to be a long time before we really chew through all those stocks before we can get really excited about wheat and really push prices much higher than they've gone.
So these little rallies that we've had around some of this fundamental news, you think those are opportunities?
Yes, I think they're very good opportunities for guys to get priced.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, Ted, appreciate that. We'll be back with more Ag Day here in just a couple of minutes.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zahner Ag Hedge at 312-277-0113.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here, looking at the drought monitor to kick off a fresh week, and some of these places could use some rain. Hopefully they'll be getting it.
It's looking like a wet week in many parts of the country, just so you know. The southeast and also some of the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma Panhandle areas. We'll get to that in a second. But the latest drought monitor continues to show those areas extremely dry, along with some dry pockets in the southeast, which will be helped. Back into the Four Corner region, I'm not so sure you folks get much rain this week, but going back a week, you can see, or 4 weeks, you can see how things have progressively gotten worse in this area from western Oklahoma, northern Texas, all the way back into the Four Corner region. And some pockets continue to be bad in the southeast. It's kind of gotten a little better parts of the Dakotas, although you can see into northern Minnesota starting to turn a little dry. Here's the jet stream as we head through this week. The cutoff low in the southwest is a key here because that's going to add some moisture there to the southern plains. And we kind of have a cutoff, you can't see it very well there, in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. There you can see it a little better. And that's just going to pump the tropical moisture into the southeast. I mean, Florida is going to get probably a month's worth of rain easy in most of the areas. So if you live in those areas, you're going to be getting a lot of rain. You can see most of the northern areas, we're talking a fairly good zonal flow. It'll still be kind of chilly right up there in the far northern lakes and the far northern portions of the northeast, but that will be about it. Heading through next weekend, we're still seeing the cutoff in the west, and we see a trough digging into the northwest as we head into the early part of next week. So here's my forecast for temperatures this week from the mid-Atlantic back through most of the Mississippi Valley except the northern sections, Texas, Four Corner region, all the way into the northwest, above normal. Near normal in the southwest, near normal in the southeast because of all the rain you're going to have. And I'm going below normal for the far northern tier of states from Minnesota, northern Michigan, on into northern Maine. Precipitation this week, above normal. I've even highlighted an area that's just going to be way above normal in the southeast. Also above normal from, we're hoping, into those drought areas, Texas Panhandle northward through the plains into the northern portions of the Rockies. 30-day outlook for temperatures then below normal, the far northeastern portions of the country. And then from Iowa westward, above normal temperatures. Precipitation over the next 30 days. I am going above normal for those drought areas, except back in the Four Corner region. And then you can see kind of west to east across the center of the country toward the mid-Atlantic. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Taking a look at Amarillo, Texas, first of all, not as hot with a thunderstorm possible, high of 89. Joliet, Illinois, variably cloudy and warmer, high of 80. And finally, Eustis, Florida, muggy with rain and heavy thunderstorms most of the day, high 79.
New combine sales are up, and Machinery Pete joins us next to talk about the used market and find out how a simple pipe can help protect our waterways. Details later on Ag Day.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started. The newest data from the Association of Equipment Manufacturers shows slight gains in tractor sales in April. Compared to a year ago, overall tractor sales climbed less than 1%. Four-wheel drive tractor sales climbed about 2%. Now, the biggest gains are in new combine sales. AEM says there was a 59% jump year over year. While sales on new combines are showing great strength, Machinery Pete says vintage combines can be a big draw at auction.
Well, I've compiled over 25,000 auction sale prices on combines since I got started many years ago, folks. And it's very interesting to keep tabs on what the high-priced ones are doing. Now, here's a picture of the highest price combine I've ever seen sold in the U.S. This was back on a December 17th, 2014 farm auction in West Central Ohio. And it was a 14 model John Deere S690, 219 engine hours on it, sold for $340,000. Now, more recently, here's a picture of the highest priced one I've seen. This was a 2016 Case IH 8240, 362 engine hours on it, sold on a farm auction in East Central Illinois November 21st of last year and brought $322,000. The used combine market's actually been pretty good since that time back in November. Now, I'm not just interested in these big late model expensive ones, just as interested in the vintage combines. Now, there's actually an estate auction coming up June 1st in Watertown, South Dakota with 5 Massey Ferguson 750s on it. Now, nothing super unusual about that except that this estate auction is for Clayton Zemlicka, a well-known custom cutter back in the 60s through the 80s. And I posted a blog last week on MachineryPete.com with some amazing pictures of his crew loading the Massey 750s in South Dakota heading to Texas on their cutting run. Now, also yesterday, there was an auction in central Minnesota where this barn find 1951 Massey Harris Super 26, a one-owner machine, sold on an estate auction. So go to MachineryPete.com. I'll update you on what those sold for. And also, we have over 7,000 combines listed for sale.
Still to come, see how air bubbles are helping to protect our oceans in the country is next.
Is now the best time to sell your old equipment? Pete's Pick of the Week keeps you up to date on current market prices, making it easy for you to know when to sell your equipment for the best possible price. Text Pete6 to 31313 to get started.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
A couple of inventors have come up with a way to help reduce the amount of plastic that ends up in oceans and lakes. The Great Bubble Barrier creates an air curtain of sorts. The concept is really pretty simple. They install a pipe with holes along a riverbed and pump air through it. Now, it creates a screen of air bubbles from the bottom of the river up to the surface. The device can stop and even guide the plastic garbage flow to the river shoreline for collection.
So we work with existing technology, but air curtains are used in multiple applications. We use a material that has been tested for over 14 years. So it's very durable. So once you place it, it can last for over 10 years. So you have a permanent block of plastic that's going through your river.
So we don't only collect it in like floating on the side of the river, but with the bubble barrier you can collect plastic over the full width and depth of a river. So these are incredible amounts that we can catch, way above our own expectations even.
Now, one of the challenges was to establish a relation between the speed of the river current and the amount of air required to produce bubbles. That could form an air curtain capable of stopping the plastic flow. Now, similar technology is already used in the oil industry as a method of fighting oil spills. An interesting concept. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in, spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.